give a talk in accessibility build tech for everyone. So shall we get started? So before we move on to accessibility, I would like you to participate in the activity. So in this activity, I would like you to bring your cell phone up. So next, I would like you to scan the QR code, and the goal of this activity, I want you to type the XCon Thailand on your phone without opening your eye. So once you're able to open the link, I would like you to close your eye and type the XCon Thailand. I will give you 1 minute for this activity. All right, the time is up. And we see a lot of results, like we see somebody got it correctly, but I still see many people didn't make it. So what do you think experience being as a bi and don't have any accessibility support? Now, let's move to some statistics here. Anyone would like to guess on how many people around the world are disability right now? Anyone know the answer? If not, 19 million? That's not the correct answer. Let me show you the answer. We have over 1 billion people, which is about 15% of world population, currently experiencing the disability right now, according to WHO. And do you know how many disability in Thailand right now? 12 million? Too much.
6 million?
Still too much. Okay, let me tell you the answer. In Thailand, over 2 million people are disability right now, which is about 3.2% of the Thailand population. Now we know how many people are in Thailand and globally are disability. What are the major types of disability? We can categorize into 5 major types. First one is a visual impairment. Visual impairment means that a person's eyesight cannot be correct at a normal level. Second, the hearing loss and impairment. It means that a person who is not able to hear as well as someone normal hearing. Third, we have the speech impairment. The speech impairment means that a person who has a hard time pronouncing different sounds. Fourth, we have the motor impairment. Motor impairment means that a person who have the partial or total loss function of the body part, this may result in muscle weakness, poor stamina, lack of muscle control, or total parasite. Lastly, we have the cognitive impairment. Cognitive impairment means that a person who has a problem with ability to think, learn, remember, use judgment, or make decision. And do you know what's the top 3 most disability in Thailand? Anyone would like to take a guess?
Visual impairments.
Visual impairment? It's one of the top 3. What about number 1? Cognitive, no. Okay, so the top most disability in Thailand, number 1 is motor impairment. Second is a hearing loss and hearing impairment. Third is a visual impairment. Let's move on. So here's some quote from WHO. Disability is a part of being human. Almost everyone will temporarily or permanently experience disability at some point in your life. If we know that in the future we might experience disability, what should we do? Have you heard of the accessibility feature? This feature is one of the solutions that developers use to help people with disability. So, what is accessibility? According to the dictionary definition of disability, accessibility is the quality of being easy to approach, reach, enter, speak with, use, or understand. If you look at this definition closely, it's all related to word ease. So ease means this lack of difficulty หรือความง่าย You can think of accessibility as something that's accessible to everyone, not only to certain people. For example, place or area that can be easily accessed by everyone is considered accessible. So for example, in the department store, we have the handicap parking space, and this parking space often located near the department store entrance. So people with disability, when they come to the mall, they can have the easy access go to the entrance because the parking space located near the building. So why accessibility is important? In the earlier activity, you may know the pain point of not having the accessibility. But with accessibility, it makes people who have disability can do everything like normal people do. So what are the things that help to improve the quality of life of people with disability? We have a wheelchair. A wheelchair will help people who have the motor impairment or lost the ability to walk or lost the leg, be able to go different paths that they decide to. But the wheelchairs not only help them to go different paths, but they also can participate in the sport activity, such as basketball or tennis. Next, we have the hearing aid, which will help people who have the hearing loss or hearing impairment, able to hear the word again. Next, we have the Braille alphabet. A Braille is a tactile writing system used by people who are visually impaired, including people who are blind. You can see example of Braille alphabet in everyday life, such as elevator. In the elevator, when we try to press the button, you often see the Braille alphabet next to the number. So blind people will touch them and will know that which floor they have to go to. Next, we have the game controller. Do you think that the gaming it should be inclusive only to certain people? But it should be to be able to enjoy by everyone, not only people who are healthy. So with this special controller, they designed for people with disability to enjoy the video game. As you can see the image on the left, this controller, they have the input jack that will be able to attach different type of button, analog stick, or joystick. So if you can see the image on the right now, the person with disability able to enjoy the video game for different purposes with the spatial controller. So how people with disability interact with the phone? Do you know the phone that we are using today? What accessibility support do they have? I would like you to take about 1 minute to look through your phone and see in your setting, how many accessibility features do they have? So I will give you 1 minute. All right, 1 minute is up. Does anyone want to share what you found? Okay, so let's move on to some of the features that's worth mentioning. So we have the screen reader. The screen reader is for people who has a visual impairment. Screen reader is a software program that allow blind or visually impaired used to read the text that's being displayed with the speech. So in the iOS, they call voiceover. On the other hand, in Android, they call talkback. So with this feature, they will allow the blind people to understand what is going on your screen. Next, we have the voice command. The voice command is for people who have the motor impairment. The voice command is software to help people to be able to control the phone using voice to tap, swipe, type, and more. In the iOS, they call voice control, and in Android, they call voice access. But do you wondering, what's the difference between Siri and Google Assistant that already exists almost 10 years now? The main difference is that the voice control or voice access does not need the strong internet connection in order to use like Siri or Google Assistant. So you can think of this feature will be replacing, instead of your use finger, we'll use your voice instead. For example, you can command the phone to swipe left, tap on the app, type something, and so on. Next, so we have the sound notification feature. So this feature is for people who have a hearing loss and impairment. Sound notification is software to recognize the certain sound and notify the user when the specific sound is detected, such as doorbell, crying baby, or fire alarm. For example, When somebody ring the bell at your front door, with the people who have the hearing loss or impairment, they will not be able to hear the doors being bell, but their phone is detect the sound. So now they will send the notification to your phone saying that somebody ring the bell. So now the user will know that they have to go to the front door. So next, why mobile accessibility support is important. Over 1 billion disability around the world, 68% of people with disability using smartphone. Over $1.9 trillion people with disability, disposable income globally. This is the spending power of these people. Do you think that this is an opportunity to access into a new market? Next, according to Google, 61% of all users won't return to the inaccessible mobile website. Next, I would like to share my experience in creating software for visually impairment. So I have interviewed with visual impairment people, and I can separate into 3 main points that they are facing when they use the application in everyday life on their mobile. So the first one, the application rely on touch gesture. What do we mean by that? Some applications require the user to do the swipe gesture in order to do some confirmation. But the screen reader cannot tell the user they have to swipe that. So this will give the user bad user experience to them because they don't know they have to do the swipe gesture. So they solve this issue by they have to go ask the people who have the eyesight and tell them what to do. So when they're reaching this step, they know that, oh, I have to swipe the screen for this action. So next, application requires scanning face. The scanning face, I didn't mean about the face ID that comes with the iPhone or iOS device. But the scanning face for when you are registered the account and used for self-identification. But for people who are blind, they cannot see where they should put the face on your frame. So they cannot align your face on the frame and they cannot pass the register process. Next, some applications are on support for screen reader. So some application that does not have the accessibility support. When we turn on the voiceover, they will read the random text on the screen. So the user will not understand what's going on the screen. So these are 3 main points that I got from the interview with people who have visual impairment. Next, I would like to share my experience that I have worked with ThoughtWork Art. So if you don't know what the ThoughtWork Art is a global creative laboratory incubating artists and technologists, exploring the impact of emerging technology on society. So in this project, I work with the biomedia artists. We developed the unseen sound application in the POC phase. It's an augmented reality design tool app to support blind and non-visual users in the creation of spatial audio design. If you don't know what augmented reality means or AR, it's the integration of digital information with user environment in real time. So next, I would like to share my experience during the development process in this project. As you may know that our phones come with the voiceover or talkback or other accessibility feature. When we developed the software, we were assuming that the application that we created, it should support the screen reader right away without adding any accessibility support. But I was wrong. I will give you some example. When I work on one of the features to do the volume slider, when I turned on the voiceover, the screen reader only say that, oh, the slider has been increment up or increment down, but I don't know what the result is. So when I use the application, it gives me very bad experience when I use this because I don't know what the volume that I adjust, what its result is. So what I want to mention is that when we create the software, don't just try to assuming that the screen reader will do everything for you. You have to add the accessibility support to your program in order to make it more smoothly, to work smoothly. Next, I would like to share some example between normal versus better accessible software. Here's the simple application. In this application, they allow the user to select the option, and when they select the option, the option will change the color to yellow with the check mark on. So what would happen if you turn on the screen reader? What would it read without any accessibility support? So here's the answer. So when we turn on the screen reader will read, please select the option 1, option 2, option 3. But you know that on the left, option 2 has been selected, but the screen reader does not know that because we haven't added the accessibility support to this program. So this is a better version. If we add the accessibility support, when the screen reader reads, now it reads, please select the option 1, option 2 selected, option 3. Now you can see, once you turn on the screen reader with the accessibility support on, the user will be able to understand which option has then been selected. So what is a suggestion practice to make the accessible software? You may be wondering, maybe we can have the checklist of the accessibility support, but in my opinion, I think to encourage the team to have the accessibility mindset is a better approach. Because if we have the mindset, if we have the checklist, we might not understand why we have to do this or that, and we might forget it eventually. But with mindset, you need to understand the concept idea first in order to do so. So first, way to measure accessibility of the product. We should know the level of accessibility support for the product. Maybe in this step, you can have the people with disability involved in this process so we can get the inside feedback. Next, understand the common accessibility issue. So try to research on common accessibility issue that people with disability are facing, so we don't repeat the same mistake again. Next, understand the accessibility support guideline. Depend on the platform you are trying to build, they have their own guideline for each platform. So for general, you can go reference the W3 website accessibility initiative. But if you want to build the mobile application, if you want to build the iOS application, you can go reference the Apple website on the Apple guidance on making iOS app more accessible. On the other hand, if you want to build Android, you can go to Android website for the accessibility support guideline. And moreover, you can get the advice from accessibility expert as well. Next, change the way of working. What do we mean by that? If you build a product that's already include the accessibility support, that's great. But if you already include the accessibility in your project plan, that's also great. But if you have not done so, I encourage you to change the way of your working. Why don't you try to include the accessibility support into your project plan and don't separate them? This can be included in designing, writing story, development, and testing. If we don't start now, when are we going to start? I hope you like my talk about the accessibility build tech for everyone. I cannot wait to see the change in our digital world that you will be making. Thank you.